Hey everybody! Hope you had a
Hi.
good holiday yesterday.
Yeah, we did. We had a nice little gathering, very limited, distantly correct, if I might say.
Yeah, it was great. And now we have Anne Ballard with us today, my co-daughter. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Sarah. Um, Greetings on Boxing Day. I think that's
That's
what that
right.
is,
Happy
but I'm not
Boxing
sure.
Day.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I'm wearing red, as you can see, and I'm here with some
You're there
instruments.
with your Rebec.
Right. So
Hey, you're in Indiana, right? So is there
I,
snow?
we had a white Christmas. We had, depending on what part of town you live in, I'm in Mishawaka, which is like a twin city up to South Bend. South Bend, Mishawaka are like one big city now.
Okay.
And we had up to 13 inches of snow on Christmas in the more western part of town. And then where we are, I think we had about 9 or 10 inches. Anyway, it was enough to get a lot of good exercise going out with the snow shovel yesterday.
I'm sure. So, for those of you who don't know, Anne and I are in the group Galileo's Daughters with other special guests. And we started that group, I'd say, what was that? Was in 2001, correct?
It sure was. How could we forget? Our
Yeah,
first concert was on September 23rd. You could call it
right.
9/23, which was not that long after 9/11.
That's right. We
And
did
we were
decide to go ahead and do the concert.
right.
Well,
We were set up. We were going to rehearse that 9/11 was.
right.
And I remember phone calls deciding what to do. And then, so then we did go out 2 days later. And I, I remember the trip. We went out to rehearse and came back to the 50th Street subway stop that was filled with rather plasticky smelling smoke,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, the all of the smell of the towers started coming through the subway and the wind shifted. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
moments like that where you realize how terrible it is. Yes. And we went ahead and did a concert because we thought it would be good for people,
Yeah.
healing. And the concert was included readings from the book Galileo's Daughter by Deva, and that's how Deva got introduced to us, and we ended up including her in the group. And you introduced me to the nun composers from Italy.
Right. I had been excited about the nun composers since about 1993. And when I did a program of their music for a conference at the University of Pennsylvania, and I was really floored. I was provided the music by these scholars who were at that point in the early 1990s working on the nuns, or the conference was actually on educated women in 17th century Italy. The first woman to get a PhD, I think, went to a university in maybe Padua, and so they had this conference, and the nun composers. The way that the people doing the research broke it up was each one took a city and investigated the convents in that city looking for music. I remember one of the prime composers was Kotzolani, and who really turned out to be a wonderful composer. And we have done Kotzolani, but at that time, at this conference, all these guys who were writing books were there, and they hadn't published their books yet. And they hadn't published their editions. So I was given these handwritten manuscripts of this music. And so then, from then on, I had a strong interest. And as their books slowly came out, by the time we got together in 2001, there was a lot of material that we could use. And while I said we mostly did nun composers, such as Kotzolani and Vitsana, and you reminded me of the Badala, Maria Giacinta Badala. I mean, there's still, you could, if you wanted to do a themed concert, you could do music of 17th century Italian women. You could do nun composers. You could do unknown composers, very little known composers.
Yeah.
And what they say, sometimes anonymous was a woman. And
probably. Well, you can do that, and we have done that.
And there were some composers who weren't nuns, but I think more of them were. The most well-known one who wasn't a nun that we've done, but who did some sacred music, was Barbara Strozzi.
Right.
And
she wasn't a nun, but she was a very prolific composer. And luckily, she had a quote unquote patron.
Her uncle.
Okay.
A well-known painter in 17th century Venice. And so she was included. He saw to it that she got a great education. And she was a member of one of the academies, these groups of intellectuals who met and shared their poetry, their music, and so forth.
Yeah.
So
and we also, since we love the idea of Galileo having a daughter who was a nun, did you show the photo of Suor Maria Celeste? There she is. So we incorporated her as well into the program that we did at the beginning with Jennifer Peterson on harpsichord. And you and me, and we did the readings, and then Deva eventually came and joined us, and then we really got into science and music, and now we have the Perpetual Motion show. So it's been a nice kind of an evolution over the years, I'd say.
Yeah, it's really been fun to work on the music with you, and then we first invited Ron McFarland to come representing Galileo's
father,
who was a lute player and a member of the Florentine Camerata. And he, his music exists. So, Galileo, let's see, Vincenzo Galilei. So Ron joined us not as a daughter, but as Vincenzo Galilei.
Yeah. And then Mark joined us as our fifth video artist beetle.
Well, he could be the painter.
I'm behind the screen.
Oh, you were the painter.
I'm the painter.
Strozzi. Bernardo
Not that I'm
Strozzi,
painting, but
that's who you are.
Yeah, you're Bernardo
actually,
Strozzi.
why don't we play a little clip?
Okay, we're going to play a little clip of from Perpetual Motion, and this piece is by actually Claudio Monteverdi, and it's called Laudate Dominum, based on the 150th Psalm. I love that osprey.
Yeah.
You filmed that on Shelter Island,
Yeah,
right?
I got very lucky. It's not so, it's kind of tough to get birds in flight like this and not too shaky. But I think that what happened, we kind of bothered the osprey, and it was just circling us. Anyway,
Cause,
and
well,
but that
he thought we were going to get into his nest
his
or
nest,
something.
yeah, it was nesting.
By
so
the way, I am not hearing what you're playing there. Is that the way it's
That's
supposed
normal.
Correct. Yeah, you can't hear it.
to? Okay.
But you'll be able to see it later
And
when
I'm
we
not. I
upload
wasn't-
this
if
interview.
you've shown any slides, I haven't seen them either.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
you performed it.
I'm sorry?
No, I mean Marianne was performing it.
Oh,
It's
yes.
all in
and that
her
piece
memories.
was with Ron McFarlane on lute and Marianne on viola da gamba.
Yeah.
And that piece is so joyful. It's like, praise him with the instruments and in the sanctuary and with the bells so it's a very up piece. And he didn't, Galileo never really lost his faith, even though he was put under house arrest by the Catholic Church and everything. He kept his faith. So speaking of faith, let's go back a few hundred years further and talk about the fabulous play of Daniel that Marianne also introduced me to.
Yes, well, you really saved me in a moment. I was all set to do the play of Daniel with a church in New York City, and they figured out on Labor Day weekend, before it was supposed to happen in cooperation with cloisters, they figured out that they couldn't do it, and that their normal church activities took up too much of their own singers' time. And so all of a sudden, there we were. It had already been announced in the New York Times list of things to do that fall. And it had been announced the day before. And I got on the phone with you that day, and you provided the encouragement I needed to go ahead. The Nancy Wu at the Cloisters, who had originally sort of commissioned me to do it, it was to be a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the first performance in modern times of the
The
play
old
of
picture.
Daniel.
I'm sorry?
And he
The old picture was some old
needless
picture
to
of those
say,
performances.
Oh,
and
well,
stuff.
that's actually, Marianne, you had produced the
I
play
had-
when you
yeah,
were at Penn.
that was the reason I
You can show
got
that.
into it originally in that year that
Mm-hmm.
we first did it, 2008.
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong picture.
But I had been
I am-
working on it with this church since the winter of 2006 or 7. Anyway, so that day that I heard that they wouldn't be able to do it, and the Cloisters was a bit nervous, shall we say.
Yes.
You encouraged me to go ahead with it. And so I talked, and Nancy Wu suggested getting Drew Minter for because he had done a lot of Baroque opera and a lot of medieval music. So we got together, and by 10 days later, I was in New York and auditioning people. And it was the most wonderful experience because I was seeing the depth of talent that will come through your door if you announce you're having auditions in New York City in early music. And
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, there's so many wonderful singers in New York.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't do a production,
Exactly.
So, and also it was so important because, as you said, it was the 50th anniversary of the original production at the Cloisters that was produced by Noah Greenberg, right?
Right.
And speaking of the Cloisters, we have a tapestry, a photo of a tapestry you sent us, and it's
Right.
14th century?
Yes, yes, it is. And I've just always loved this little scene because whenever I think of women's music, which we just talked about, and I look at this, a lot of times in art, in earlier art, the people depicted playing instruments are men, angels, whatever. Anyway, this is a courtly scene with a woman wearing a crown in the middle. So the other two are either playing for her or they're playing with her, and she is holding a cat. And I've always asked myself whether she is singing or whether she's using the cat as an instrument. What would happen if she were to pull the tail of the cat? So, nevertheless, this is like I say, one of my favorite pictures
That's
of
great.
a woman playing
It
music.
is. And then we have another picture, and that is the pen production that you did, that you
Right.
sent us. And that is really neat because it does show you can do a lot with very little.
Right. Yeah. And you see on the wall, as it were, the part of the set, of course, we were in a church, and with many churches, you just have to get everything out of the way for their normal services to take place. So that wall behind Daniel and Belshazzar, it had the handwriting on the wall written on little panels we would uncover, Mane, Tekel,
Uh-huh.
and that's the very low tech way we did that.
Yeah.
So
Cool. We had lighting appear and the writing appeared on the wall literally, which was very cool. So now we
Right.
have a couple, because it's really fascinating that the play of Daniel has become, it was kind of a tradition in New York for
right, that's
several
why
decades.
I got asked to do it at Penn. Some vice president or dean or something at Penn had gone to see Greenberg's production in New York. And he had, knowing that I had this early music group at Penn that was very active. I can't believe we did like 6 new programs every year. And he called up the music department and asked whether we could do the play of Daniel, and said that he would provide a grant. And I had never thought that ambitiously before about what I could do at Penn. But hey, I was the play of Daniel, the music itself comes from a period that I had wonderful courses learning how to transcribe the earliest notation, the notation of the Notre Dame school. Well, there was a little earlier, but I won't get all academic here. Anyway, the Notre Dame school in Paris was evolving with Landon and Peretin, the first composers who were able to hand us down music that was in rhythmic notation. That was happening at the same time as the play of Daniel was being originally produced in Beauvais. And so the kind of texts that were in the music were the same kind of things that I'd been dealing with in my notational studies. So what I had to do, as I looked at all the texts in our Daniel, I could see that they were metrical, rhymed, and so forth. So it made sense to transcribe them in rhythmic notation. And a lot of them sounded like dances or processionals, and you could walk to them.
Yes. And that's what you ended up doing with this production that I was in with you.
Right.
And I just want to clarify, the 2 photos that we just showed previously were actually like playbills of other medieval works. One was the play of Marion.
Oh, Robin and Marion. Right. I was my other experience with medieval drama actually came before my 1976 production of the play of Daniel at Penn. I had joined a group in 1983 in New York called the New World Consort. And the people in it, there was a guy who was a church music director and also a wonderful baritone singer named Bill Mount. And then there was, I mean, everybody who was already in the group beside me, Bill and Bob Cowart and Rosemary Caminiti, they already had this group going with a different gamba player, and then they needed that there was a vacancy.
Yeah.
And we added, Bob was very talented in languages, and he made an edition of the play of Robin and Marian in a course he was taking at Queens at
Queens College.
Yeah, Queens.
And
so,
our friends Krista Patton, who's been in the play of Daniel, and David Ronas, a friend of ours, was continuing that and doing early music workshops at Queens College just recently for the last few years. So the tradition does carry on. So we're kind of getting towards the end of our time, and I would love for you to show the rebec and play a couple little tunes from Daniel on it.
Okay, well, we had quite the Daniel orchestra for this. And what was in my mind was thinking of paintings that have multiple musicians arrayed around an important personage, usually either the Virgin Mary or Jesus. And it's like harking back to that 150th Psalms where you're praising them with instruments. So anyway, the rebec is just one of 4 melody instruments we had. I hope this comes through half decently. Let me check the tuning. Okay, this is the opening number in the play of Daniel. Adam Norem tui Christi Danielis ludus isti. You can hear the rhyme. And then the satraps bring in, Belshazzar appears, and he wants to have this grand celebration using the spolia from his wreckage of the temple. And so he has his satraps go bring in, and then they start a banquet and they dance. So this is just a little tune in the middle of the dance. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's like a dance. So you can see how there's movement and in the music. It's not heavy. And I mean, people danced then too.
And Drew's staging of it, I mean, the choreography was awesome.
We have a little clip. We could show a little clip.
Yeah, we have a clip from the Cloisters production, and it's the entrance of the Queen. So you won't be able to hear it, but we're going to let our audience watch it.
They will see you as the Queen.
Yes, it was me. The royal she.
Even
Everybody was muted.
There you are. What?
Bring good memories.
Very good memories.
Yes. And
Right.
yeah, it was a good
And
show.
you never know. We may be
You
able to
never
do it
know.
again.
I always hope,
Oh.
we've still got the costumes
Got the
and
costumes.
Drew's
I got a barn. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, Drew has the sets. So if we,
Yep.
if another opportunity presents itself, we're ready to go. And I think a lot of the original cast members would love to come back. I
I'm
should just
sure they would.
say there were so many talented people. And you, of course, were the perfect queen. And
Well,
it
I have
wasn't
to
just
say
the
something.
award.
I didn't see the rehearsal. I just went for the first show or before the first show. And when I saw Sarah coming in as the queen, I said, that's it. She's possessed by that queen or something. She was like a different person.
Uh-huh.
I embodied the character.
Yeah.
You're,
I was so into it.
And I was
in.
inspired by Eleanor of Aquitaine. A
Well,
similar time period.
Uh-huh. Right.
The Lion
well,
in Winter. Did you the film with Peter O'Toole and I can't think of her name. Tracy. Katharine Hepburn.
No, I'll have
Yeah.
I will have to look it up.
Oh, it's a great film.
So
But
we should
What's
mention.
fascinating about the play of Daniel is that it's kind of one of the first real musical plays that is written down that we, as modern humans, can access.
Right.
that correct?
Medieval music drama, there were not many of them written down that we still have a record of both the words and the music. So it's lucky that we have that. And Daniel is the greatest of them all. I think of it as an anthology of the greatest tunes from the Middle Ages. I mean, some of them we can actually trace to other sources that were adopted for the play of Daniel. I think of it, it's sort of like on late night television, you used to hear people advertise getting these CDs that were of all, the world's greatest melodies, and this is the greatest melodies of the year 1200.
Yeah. The greatest hits.
So,
Well, Marianne, thank you so much for chatting with us and bringing back those wonderful memories of that production and of our work as co-daughters that we will be resuming.
well, thank you, Sarah.
The more, hopefully soon. And tomorrow, my brother, John Pillow, is going to be here.
It's a family affair.
It's a family affair. So, thank you, Marianne. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.